This is Healthcare Now Radio's Talking the Walk. Come along with us as host Tom Testa and his guests discuss the strides being made toward actionable changes in the industry. It's a fast-paced 30 minutes, so keep up. And now, here's Tom Testa.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking the Walk. I'm your host, Tom Testa. This show is all about diving into real conversations that inspire, challenge, and move us forward. No shortcuts, just authentic journeys. Joining me today is Lee Barrett. Lee serves as the Commission Executive Director for DirectTrust. DirectTrust is a nonprofit, vendor-neutral alliance dedicated to establishing trust in a connected world. The organization serves as a forum for a consensus-driven community focused on health communication and cybersecurity. They're an ANSI standards development organization and accreditation and certification body governed by ENAC. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. They're also a developer of technical trust frameworks and supportive services for secure information exchange like direct secure messaging and identity verified credentials. In addition, DirectTrust is committed to fostering widespread public confidence in the interoperable exchange of health information while promoting quality service, innovation, cooperation, and open competition in healthcare. Lee, welcome to Talking the Walk.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Good to be here.
Great to have you, Lee. Lee, there are probably a lot of folks listening that know who Lee Barrett is and your work across the industry. But for those who don't, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with DirectTrust, and even touch upon how DirectTrust serves as that accreditation and certification body governed by ENAC?
Sure, great question. So originally, I was the CEO for the Electronic Healthcare Network Accreditation Commission, or ENAC, as you were referring to. And I was at ENAC in that role, developing accreditation programs for the industry for 30 years. And we ended up merging with DirectTrust about 3 years ago now. And I came over as the Commission Executive Director, which means that I continue to have, and ENAC continues to have, a very significant role in the whole accreditation aspect for working with DirectTrust. Mm-hmm. We have a commission of about 14 people representing various stakeholders in the industry and really representing stakeholders for all of our 20 plus accreditation programs. Our accreditation programs take into account HIPAA, privacy, security, cybersecurity. We incorporate NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology frameworks. We are also a HITRUST certifier as well. So we work with HITRUST, where we appreciate the partnership we have there with HITRUST. So we provide a whole range of accreditation services. We have assessors that have a minimum of 20 years of healthcare experience that do our actual assessments for all of our accreditation programs. And that has been really, when we merged and came over, that was really very important from the standpoint of assuring the level of trust that organizations were looking for in relation to the type and the rigor of the programs that we use for accreditation. Back in 2021, Tom, you probably remember there was a Public Law 116-321 that was passed that really gave credence to the organizations that are, quote, that provide and have recognized security frameworks. Mm-hmm. ENAC at that time was one of them. NIST is also another, and HITRUST. So that has really become, I think, very important, for organizations who are looking for, hey, who's the right type of third-party entity that I can look to use to assure the level of trust and the level of rigor within my organization to other stakeholders. So that's what I've been doing. I've been in the healthcare industry for over 30 years. So I've got a lot of experience in the whole healthcare sector that I've been able to utilize as we look to develop these accreditation programs. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's obviously a great background, Lee. Thank you for that. And an important one as you help guide these companies in this day and age of advanced cyber threat, which we're going to get into. I mean, it seems critical more now than ever to have folks like you in their corner. as they navigate this very turbulent atmosphere. Well, Lee, I want to get things kicked off. So you recently authored a piece that was published in Chief Healthcare Executive titled, it's a great title, Establishing Trust, and this is something you just touched upon here, Establishing Trust in Healthcare Data Security Through Accreditation. In that article, you emphasize the role of accreditation in building trust within healthcare. Makes sense. Can you elaborate on how accreditation specifically enhances data security and privacy for both patients as well as providers?
There are several points that I'm going to make here, Tom, in relation to answering that question. So first, I think, accreditation or certification, people use the terms kind of synonymously, really is providing that level of rigor around reviewing an organization's infrastructure, around their policies, their procedures, the controls that they're using. And again, within the healthcare sector, we're very concerned, obviously, around HIPAA, privacy, and security, not just one versus and not the other. It's both privacy and security, and the whole cybersecurity aspects as well today. And in fact, the new security rule that came out from OCR in December is now further emphasizing and incorporating cybersecurity requirements in it, because the entire environment has continued to morph, where cyber is, as you indicated, rampant, and we're seeing far more ransomware attacks that are occurring. In many cases, you're looking at about a very high percentage, almost in the 90 percentile, of many of these attacks are occurring because of employees, inside people, who are either intentionally or unintentionally planting malware within environments. And so a lot of the training that goes on, et cetera, is good, that's going on, but we need more of it, and we need more of the controls in place. So what that means is the cyber hygiene for organizations, the need for that third party to be reviewing an organization's cyber hygiene is now greater than ever. So you're looking at, NIST, there's the 853, 863, their cybersecurity framework. We incorporate all of those requirements within our accreditation criteria. We also, there's another organization called the Healthcare Sector Coordinating Council. The healthcare, I've been involved in the Coordinating Council for a number of years. And the Coordinating Council is also developing a number of resources around best practices for cybersecurity. We incorporate a lot of those best practices within our accreditation criteria as well. So the point that I'm making is that on the accreditation or certification side of this, it's never just stale. It's constantly changing as we're continuing to get more requirements, greater requirements, not only policies, procedures, but best practices. As they evolve, we continue to incorporate those in our accreditation criteria. So that's really to say that really those are the types of industry sources that we're constantly leveraging, going back to your point on building trust. And then I think the other aspect is we feel that trust is really how patients and providers are really looking at data these days. Looking at it from the standpoint of how is data being transferred, and as we look at interoperability, in fact, coming into play here with, for example, TEFCA, the Trusted Exchange Framework with Common Agreement. TEFCA and the whole interoperability side here is now going to create a whole different way in which data is going to be able to be really transmitted between entities. I use the example today, Tom, that if I get rolled into an emergency room in California today and I'm unconscious, and that attending physician needs to get at my EHR, my electronic health record, they may or may not be able to get that information. In most cases, they probably wouldn't be able to, because they can't pull that data from all the various sources to get a single record. So guess what? What that attending physician is going to be able to do is make me as comfortable as possible. But mortality goes up. In the future, with what interoperability is going to be doing, as it gets operationalized and is in the process of being implemented with these qualified health information networks, participants, sub-participants that are all part of it. Take that same scenario 3 years from now, I get rolled in and unconscious. Somebody's going to be able to take my wallet out of my pocket, get my driver's license, key my driver's license number into the EHR system, and it will pull all these various sources to come up with my EHR. Well, now that attending physician's got all the data on Lee Barrett that they need to start treatment, and mortality goes down. But the issue now is I now have exponentially increased the number of data points in which data is now being transmitted. That increases risk of a cyber attack or data to be compromised in some way or breached. And so now the issue is assuring that all those data points have the appropriate controls, all the appropriate accesses from a security perspective, from a privacy perspective, requires a third party to actually go in and validate that an organization has all of those locked down the best they possibly can. To my point, to all organizations, to any entity, is it's not a matter of if, it's when an attack is going to happen. And how good is your contingency plan? How good is your disaster recovery plan so that when it does happen, you can mitigate the amount of reputational impact, credibility on the organization, as well as revenue loss. And so that's where the rigor of third-party accreditation or certification is absolutely critical. And I think the last point here, Tom, is a lot of people don't realize that when you start to talk about accreditation or certification, the third-party aspect, a lot of the cyber insurers that are out there today, many of these cyber insurers are still taking and underwriting applications for entities. We think that within the next year maximum two, any of these cyber insurers will no longer just underwrite anybody without having a third-party entity having validated that the organization has the cyber rigor and has had a third-party review of their policies, procedures, and controls. Because of the number of claims that have been made and the dollar amounts that have been outlaid by these entities, they're going to require it. So anybody who wants cyber insurance is going to have to go through a third party. So these are all the key points I think that organizations need to be thinking about when they're looking at their infrastructure. And that's what has to do with the trust factor that I think both patients and providers are looking for today, and other stakeholders.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Talking the Walk on Healthcare Now Radio. I'm Tom Testa, and joining me today is Lee Barrett of DirectTrust. Lee, that's great. And it's super clear, it sounds, about how accreditation really can build trust within the providers and the patients, even more so kind of behind the scenes. Like they're building that trust through patients without them potentially even knowing that all these providers are accredited. So that's great stuff. I want to talk about, and this is something you touched upon in your article as well, the increasing integration of technologies like AI and the Internet of Things, right, in healthcare. We see them everywhere. I can bring my tablet in as a patient. You, even as a provider, lots of tablets, lots of technologies connecting throughout a healthcare organization. That said, what unique challenges do these innovations pose for data security? Touched upon one already about the many, many different touch points there, right? And how can accreditation adapt to address these evolving risks? And I know DirectTrust is doing some stuff there as well.
We have been working very closely with all of our counterparts in the industry. With the Healthcare Sector Coordinating Council, with NIST. NIST has developed an AI framework as well, Tom, and we've incorporated many of the aspects of their framework into our accreditation model as well. And you're seeing a lot of legislation that's being proposed around AI having to do with, especially from a privacy perspective.
Right, because there are no regulations in place now. Right?
Not really. You saw there was an executive order, I believe, that President Trump signed on his first day on AI. Again, it's gaining, it has a lot of visibility, whether it's AI or cybersecurity. These are both very significant issues for the industry. And we're seeing not only at the federal level, but we're seeing states as well. So there are many states similar on the privacy side. We've seen a lot of states that have developed their own privacy legislation, like California and others. In California, CCPA, and that model has proliferated into other states. It's based on the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, in Europe, and we're just seeing more and more states. The same thing is happening with AI. Going back to your point, what AI is doing within the cybersecurity realm is providing bad actors with greater ability to infiltrate organizations, whether or not it's algorithms that they've now got for being able to crack passwords, to looking at patterns that organizations use. They're able to replicate that with AI, and as AI learns more and more, they're able to figure out various infiltration points to get into organizations far easier. Phishing and spear phishing emails. I mean, you want to talk about how AI is being used to craft emails, because these AI engines now know a lot more about Tom Testa, where an email can come from a bad actor looking like Tom Testa asking someone for information, and it's saying, you remember, Lee, that I had such and such an issue, where most people wouldn't know that, and it looks even more real than they do today, because I've got personal information from you that I wouldn't think most people would have. So it looks even more real when I'm getting this email from you or from a bad actor on your behalf. People are going to click on it. And so it's a greater risk to certainly cyber and for any of these types of impacts that are going to occur to organizations. And so the same thing with the Internet of Things. You look at what organizations or even individuals have today in your homes with smart TVs, and we've got Alexas, we've got doorbells.
I can connect to my refrigerator.
Doorbells, your refrigerator, right? You can go in on an app.
Right.
My, hearing aids, whatever it is.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
All of these are part of Internet of Things. Okay. When you look at it, just think if a bad actor is able to get at your router within your home, that's now controlling access to all this information in your home, and is able to get at a lot of your personal data as well.
Yep.
It's all great what we have, but the more, and we start to look at the phones as well, bring your own devices within hospital settings or other types of settings where people are using health apps and other types of information where you got personal data on these phones. All of these become greater risk vectors for bad actors to be able to infiltrate. And so you add AI into it, and AI just provides a whole different level of ability for bad actors to be able to gain access to this data. So what we're doing to offset it is we've got the NIST AI framework, we've got the cyber framework. We're continuing to see and monitor other organizations like the Healthcare Sector Coordinating Council and what they're doing on AI. And there's a lot of other entities as well. We're incorporating those best practices, those controls into our accreditation criteria. So we're adding greater rigor around the AI risk here, and Internet of Things. What that does is it provides at least a good level of cyber rigor for organization. It does not, and I'm just going to emphasize, not mitigate the fact that, or the risk. It doesn't say, hey, by going through an accreditation or getting a certain accreditation or certification, you're not going to be subject to a ransomware attack, and that's going to happen. But again, the other piece of our accreditation model and certification, with the certification models that are out there, is about the rigor around having the contingency plan, your disaster recovery plan. So when that happens, how quickly are we going to be able to recover and mitigate the overall reputational and revenue impact to the organization? That's why this is important. And that's why, when you're talking about these are just greater threats. AI has tremendous value to the healthcare industry, but it's going to be a matter of putting the right types of controls around how it's being used.
And I know accreditation is working its part for Internet of Things and AI. Something that you and I have talked about before are medical devices, and talk about a scary instance there. You're talking about, what about accessing patient data, but what about a cyber criminal accessing a medical device?
Or an infusion pump. I mean,
Exactly.
it's happened. Bad actors can access medical devices. They're going to continue to do so. They can take an infusion pump and basically change dosage or shut it off totally. The answer is, yeah, medical devices, and many of the medical device manufacturers are certainly taking the whole issue of security very seriously, and they're looking at ways in which they can look to add greater levels of controls and security within the devices. But it's still significant risk out there. You start to look at all these devices, Tom, I mean,
Yep.
and including smartphones, and bring your own device, within hospital environments or other types of environments. And people have EHR records on these devices. Again, without the right controls, without the right encryption, any one of these is a risk vector for a bad actor to gain access.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about, that there's patient access laws going into place. More patients need access to their medical records. Like you just said, they're carrying them around on their smartphones, their tablets. And it's one thing to say, great, I have access to my records, but how secure are you now that you have them all on your own personal tablet, your own personal phone?
Well, it even goes beyond that, Tom, because think about it today. How many people are looking at and wanting to use different health apps on their phones?
Oh, right. Yep.
And great to use these health apps, but who's reviewed them to determine whether or not determine how safe that data is? How secure is that data?
That's true. You go into an app store and you just see thousands, it seems like, of apps.
Who's got access to that data?
Right.
And again, you leave the phone, it's somewhere. How secure is that data?
Right.
These are the types of things that people just have to be giving thought to when you're looking at all the various apps and all the different opportunities people have for their data.
That's great. And it's great to know DirectTrust has their eye on that and doing their part. I know you have a program too, tied directly to the health app.
We do. And so we're looking at, all that having to do with controls around the apps. We've got a program as well with Karen for the Karen Code of Conduct as well for all of these apps. Again, it's a matter of kind of raising the bar on overall really information and keeping people informed and aware of what they're doing, and hopefully raising the bar as they're going through any one of these as a third party review. This
is great, Lee. This has been an awesome conversation. I want to talk about before we wrap things up for the day. I want to talk about, there are these, of course, the rising number of data breaches that we've seen in recent years, major data breaches where no one feels safe anymore, from big to small. It doesn't matter what size organization you are. You touched upon some of the steps, but what steps can healthcare organizations take to not only achieve accreditation, which is fantastic, but also maintain and continuously improve their data security standards over time? What best practices do you have that you can offer our listeners?
The best practices come down to one, as part of the accreditation process or certification, that has a whole set of policy. It's all the policies, the procedures that organizations need to have in place, and then it's the training that has to go on within an organization. Ongoing training, keeping the visibility high among the staff on what they're doing, how they're doing it, how emails are coming in, what to look for on a phishing or a spear phishing email that may be coming in, how they're managing passwords, the whole aspect of how they're managing their passwords. I mean, 50%, Tom, of passwords in the United States are password admin, I mean.
Right.
So it's having secure, difficult passwords and changing them is important. The whole aspect of multi-factor authentication is critical to be leveraging today. Many banks and financial organizations are requiring multi-factor now. The more you use multi-factor, it's just another good way of mitigating risk The other that I would tell you is the key is on patch management that they use to have ongoing patch management within the organizations on antivirus and other to make sure all of that is updated. Those are the types of best practices that organizations in rigor and the whole backup and contingency plans are critical. When there's an attack, how do we address it? And it's not just a matter of having a contingency plan you put up on the shelf, Tom. It's then having ongoing testing that you do with that to go through it, determine where you got gaps and mitigating those gaps. So those are all that I would tell you, that the accreditation, and then by doing that, you're going to be in a better position as well with your cyber insurer as well, who's going to be requiring this in the near term.
Lee, that's great. I really, this has been such an amazing conversation. I appreciate you joining me, Lee. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. I always appreciate seeing you and being with you.
We'll definitely have you on again this year, especially as things continue to develop. We've got a new administration. We've got a whole year ahead of us. So looking forward to having you on again. Okay,
Tom. Thanks. Take care.
If you'd like more information on DirectTrust or interested in connecting with Lee, visit their website at directtrust.org. Thanks for joining us today on Talking the Walk. Tune in to hear us weekdays at 8:30 a.m., 4:30 p.m., and 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also find all our episodes on the Talking the Walk program page on healthcarenowradio.com. If you're someone who is walking the talk, we want to talk to you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or by filling out the show's contact form on healthcarenowradio.com. Until next time, keep walking your talk. I'm Tom Testa. Take care, everyone.